You're listening to More Than Steps, the podcast where we geek out on how belly dance works, one coffee run at a time. I'm your hostess, Nadira Jamal.
This is part 4 of a multi-part series exploring how to use dimension to add depth to your dancing. This episode can stand alone, but if you want an overview, you can start with the episode titled Dimension. One thing that separates dance and other performing arts from the visual arts is that it's all about time. A live performance is about creating a moment in time that will never come again. And so playing with time is an important tool in our artistic toolkit. So in this episode, we're going to talk about 3 ways to work with time: alternation patterns, speed variations, and pauses. Alternation patterns are when we mix and match movements or combos using clear structures. Some common examples are AAAB and ABAB. So AAAB is when you do the same movement 3 times and then do something different on the 4th, like lift, 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 drop. ABAB is when you alternate 2 movements, like lift, drop, drop. And like all of our dimensions, we can use alternation patterns to create simple variety, just to make it different from what we were doing before. But one of the benefits of alternation patterns is that they allow us to organize our movements into a clear structure that makes sense to the audience. And if the audience can't follow your train of thought, they're going to get bored. But alternation patterns also allow us to play with the audience's expectations. That classic AAAB pattern lets us lull the audience into thinking that we're just going to repeat the same thing 4 times, but instead of the 4th one being the same, we give them a surprise at the end. Another reason to use alternation patterns is that these structures are baked into the music. The composers who created the music in the first place are using these same tools because they have that effect on the audience. And so using alternation patterns is also a way to respond to what you hear, not just to create combos out of thin air. Now, this was the very first thing that I talked about in the very first episode of my very first podcast called Taktaba back in 2006. If you'd like to see that in a whole lot more detail, you can check out episode 1 on my website or in the Dimension library. Another way to play with time is with speed variations. And our goal here is to use the full spectrum of speeds in your dancing. And, a lot of us fall into a speed rut sometimes. You'll find that often you may be dancing in 2 speeds: slow, medium, and shimmy. But the thing is, the belly dance movement vocabulary can support a huge range of speeds. We've got super slow, medium, fast, really fast. And if you have the technical skill to pull it off, you can do extraordinarily slow or extraordinarily fast. And so cultivating that full range is partly an issue of technique, because both ends of the spectrum are harder to execute. But I think that they're underused mostly because we forget to do it. And again, speed variations can create simple variety, but there are also some other effects that they can create on our audience. When you mix and match speeds together, it creates this kind of neat texture. So if you've been dancing slowly, then throwing in a little bit of fast here and there spices things up, and it creates a sense that anything is possible. If you've been dancing at a faster speed, throwing in some slow can create this great sense of drama, or just give the audience a breather, depending on how you style it. And switching to medium from any more extreme tempo creates this kind of relaxed, confident feeling, and it gathers the audience's attention back into you, like you're regrouping as a team. The classic example of this is when a song switches from any tempo to that kind of mid-tempo bellady, or Masmudi Sayir, doom doom tek a tek, doom tek a tek. And you just stand there doing hip drops, and the crowd goes wild. That's that effect in action. Speed changes are also a tool for reflecting changes in the music. Now there's the obvious, because sometimes the musical tempo changes, and it's nice to be able to follow it. But there are also more artistic ways of doing that. For example, if your song is starting to build dramatic tension, then moving extraordinarily slowly can up the ante, regardless of the actual tempo of the song. If the music's going crazy, moving extraordinarily slowly can be contrast that builds that tempo. Now, our third topic is pausing. This is when we mix movement and stillness. Now, pauses can be brief, just a beat or two, or they can be more extended, lasting a whole phrase or even longer. One of my favorite dance quotes is from modern dancer Martha Graham, who once said, "Don't just do something, stand there." Now, the key to any pause is to keep your expression alive. That's what makes this effective. You're not frozen, you've just stopped moving. And so having a clear intention for your pause can really help. So some ideas are, you can take a deep inhale, you can take a deep sighing exhale, you can do both, in then out. You can sweep your gaze over the audience and connect with them. You can also imagine yourself inviting the audience to witness that moment, whether that's noticing the lines of your pose or to join you in whatever emotional experience you're having. You can say to them in your mind, "Ooh, just listen to that neigh. Oh, that's so intense, I just couldn't take it for another second." Right? Having a clear intention behind your pause gives it life and makes it a dance move, not just a stop. Now, my favorite pause is what I call the wait for it moment. This is when you stop, pause, and then resume with a very specific emotional intention. We stay communicating with the audience the whole time. So when you stop, you're saying to them, "Wait for it." And when you resume, you're kind of releasing that tension. You're saying, "Oh, okay, you can have it. I'll dance for you again." Or, "I was just kidding. We're not going to stop." Now, if you're interested in pauses, this is a really rich topic, and a great resource is Rosa Noreen's Delicious Pauses DVD. So how do you apply these to your dancing? Well, like any variation, it's just about the same process. A good place to start is by brainstorming some of these variations. List as many alternation patterns or pause ideas as you can. Go through your movement vocabulary and explore your speed spectrum. Which movements can you do super slow, slow, medium, fast, or really fast? Are there any movements that you could stretch into more challenging speeds with more practice? And is that a good goal for you right now, or is it not really a priority now, or maybe not ever? Then explore. Play around with as many different combinations and variations and moves as you can. And as always, watch yourself and notice how you respond. Now, for the other dimensions, I was pretty big on recommending video, but I think for a lot of time dimensions, you really can observe yourself effectively in the mirror. But regardless, notice how you respond to each of these. What do you like? What don't you like? What emotional textures does that create? And for extra credit, start watching how other dancers use these same ideas. All right. So the resources that I mentioned during this episode are all included in the Dimension Library, which is a free collection of resources that I put together to support this series. You can get that for free at bellydancegeek.com/dimension-library. And if you like what you're hearing, leave us a review on iTunes. It helps me out, and it helps other listeners find the show.
Thanks for listening. For more geektacular resources, visit bellydancegeek.com.